kind of artistic, cultural, and recreational opportunities are out there for today's children? From the quaint suburban community of Plymouth to the sprawling big city of Detroit, what's the future of arts and recreation? Are we encouraging creative and innovative expression? And are we providing ample and affordable recreational outlets? What's the future of those things we closely associate with, quote unquote, the quality of life? We'll talk about that this morning with Don Soenen, and welcome to Spotlight. Don, glad to have you here.
Well, thanks for inviting me in.
You're over a building in Plymouth that is 99 years old, coming up on that 100th anniversary, and you've turned it into an arts and recreation complex. That must have been one heck of a job.
Well, it's a bit of a task, but you know, after 99 years of serving that community, there's a tremendous amount of attachment in the community to that school. And so there's a lot of interest in what we were doing there. And also our studies indicated there was a real need in the community for a focal point for arts and recreation facilities in the Plymouth and surrounding community. Part of the problem has been with the arts has been very scattered. You know, they had a variety of different offices. They'd build the sets for theater groups in one place. They'd store them in another place. Their offices
everything could be
else.
up under one roof.
It's all under one roof. And the other thing is that's unique about this facility is that the arts organizations and recreation organizations that we serve move their offices into the facility. It's their home. They don't just come in and rent the theater. We've got a couple of theaters. They use them, but their offices are there. They rehearse there. They perform there. They have parents meetings in those facilities.
All right, let's back up just a little bit so people understand what we're talking about. Those who live in frequent downtown Plymouth have probably seen it, but those who don't go, they aren't sure what the heck we're talking about here. So you've got a building that's 99 years old, 160,000 square feet.
Right.
Used to be Central Middle School
Right.
in Plymouth. Used to be part of the Plymouth Canton School District.
Right.
From a financial point, what happened? The school system outgrew this middle school?
Well, the population has shifted primarily to Canton from Plymouth, and I think they were interested in getting a new middle school, which they built in Canton, closer to where the
After 99 years,
yeah.
it was probably time.
And, you know, they didn't feel it was worth renovating that school into a middle school, particularly when it wasn't really located where they would prefer to have it. So they built a new school, and that opened last September. They closed it this past June, last June, at the end of the season. And we purchased it, private funds, a private party purchased the school when it closed. And we immediately
$3.3 million, I understand, to buy the building.
To buy the building.
Is that a good deal?
Well, you know, it was the appraised value.
That's what the market bear.
We thought it was high. They thought it might be low, but you know how that goes.
All right.
But, you know, it's 16 and a half acres, and it's right at the center of Plymouth. It's a block off the main
Downtown Plymouth.
Right downtown. 16 and a half acres, football stadium, soccer fields, baseball, tennis courts, a full pool, gymnasium, and 60 classrooms in that facility that can be converted to offices.
So, Don, was the dilemma facing the community, what do we do with this big old building? Either we tear it down, somebody else develops on it, we turn it into something else, but we certainly, I'm sure the school system is saying, we don't want to keep having this on our operating budget.
No, obviously they didn't want to keep that asset on their books, so they needed to dispose of it. And there's probably only two alternatives. We do this with it, or it gets bulldozed down and developed into whatever some developer might want to do with that property.
Right, tell us some of the tenants that you have in there.
Yeah, Michigan Philharmonic has moved in. That's their home base now, and Michigan Philharmonic Youth Orchestra, Forever After Productions, large theater group, Main Street Opera Theater, Plymouth Canton Cruisers, swim team. We got the Central Park Pottery Studio in there, art studios. So we have a whole variety of different groups that are in there as tenants. We have a fitness group that comes in there. but I'm the landlord. We are the landlord. We don't run the programs. And I think that's unique about this particular piece of property and how it's being operated. Typically, these types of community centers, the community gets in, they build a facility, they hire countless numbers of people to run a lot of programs, and ultimately they typically end up being heavily subsidized in order to sustain that kind of operation. We have taken an entirely different approach.
So I come in, I want one of those 55 classrooms on floor 1, 2, or 3, and I know you're still refurbishing floor number 3. That's my room, that's my piece. I take care of it, I pay the rent to you. You don't have to worry about what goes in there as long as they don't go in there and do something ridiculous. It's you and one other person that manages this 160,000 square foot
it's
building?
Me and one fellow that looks after the building, does a terrific job, hired him from the school district. He looked after it before, so he knew it.
So he knew
and we have a couple of custodians that look after the place, and we do have someone running our swim program. The swim program is one thing we do. And I think we do very well. But other than that, everything else is the tenants are responsible. They do their own marketing. They do their own promotion. And I think this is what makes those things very successful. I don't know anything about promoting some of those arts organizations that would be in there.
I was going to say, and you're not a developer in terms of your past history. You're an engineer.
Yeah.
All right, retired from engineering and then got involved in this, or how did all this come about?
I've been running businesses for quite a number of years in the business arena, and this wasn't that difficult a transition. It's running a business. It's like running a 160,000 square foot facility with a lot of different tenants and users.
You had to fix up this 99-year-old building. A lot of kids had come through there, and a lot of activities throughout the years. How did you do it? You got grants, you got donations, you got volunteers, what?
We had some private donations. People are willing to contribute to it, but most of the work was done with volunteers. I'll bet 90% of the work that's been done at that facility has been done with volunteers.
All right, let's look towards the future. Maintaining a 99-year-old building is not the easiest thing in the world. How are you going to upkeep this? How are you going to make this model work financially for you? Is that something you're going to go out and eventually try to get a millage for?
Eventually, we'd like to move towards a millage, possibly with the Plymouth and Plymouth Township. One mill would just do wonders for that place. We could do everything imaginable, and probably less than that. But you know, we're going to need some help. But we'd like to put probably $15 to $20 million into the entire complex, upgrading it, and we need some help with that. We can cover all the operating costs for what we're doing now. We're doing just fine financially. We do not have a problem. We finished 2015, just got our audited statements, came out of there in good shape. So we're not concerned so much about operating expenses, but if we want to enhance this facility to meet its full potential, we're going to need some outside help.
And we have that debate now between what's the role of government and what's the role of private developers.
Right.
Your thoughts, and what does this mean in terms of arts and recreation and cultural things coming down the line that everybody says we need in terms of quality of life, but then when you start asking people to pay for it, whoa, I don't want it out of my pocket.
Well, I would certainly caution communities that have opportunities like this not to get themselves overly engaged in micromanaging what goes on in the facility. I think the model of taking over responsibility for the facility, serving as a landlord, making it available to various arts and recreation organizations, have them pay their way, that really substantially helps subsidize that effort if you can get the users of those facilities to participate in the actual costs, particularly on the operating costs. Because invariably people have said, well, okay, I don't mind building the facilities, but what guarantee do I have that this isn't going to be a white elephant and we're going to sink money into it forever? And I think the model we're using can demonstrate that you're not going to get into the operating problems that many of them do.
All right. Don, any regrets whatsoever on
None whatsoever.
taking this leap of faith?
None whatsoever. It's a little bit of a leap of faith, but I've been pretty close to the arts organizations in that community for the last 40-some years, and I had a good sense from them that there was a terrific need for this thing, for a focal point for the arts in the community, and we had no problem getting organizations to commit to move their operations into that facility.
Thanks for coming in and talking about what has quickly become a real attraction and anchor for the Plymouth-Canton area, and perhaps a role model for other communities on how to move forward with arts and culture